Hello, everyone. Today, in our project management professional show, we have with us our guest speaker, and her name is Rachel Nicholson, and she is a PMP. And she has quite a remarkable story of how she was able to connect with me and my training options. And that's what we're going to be hearing today on her entire journey to PMP success. So, Rachel, welcome, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, Phil. It's a pleasure to be here.
Lovely. So, Rachel, let's talk about how and why you thought about the PMP certification, because a lot of people, first of all, don't even hear about it until long in their careers. And then when they do, some of them say, no, I don't want to go down that road. I've already been a project manager for a while, blah, blah, blah. And they kind of wrangle their way out of doing it. But you found out about it. And how did you find out about the PMP?
Oh, I'm trying to think how I originally found out about the PMP. It might have been someone I knew through the years. It has definitely been quite a while, but I knew probably within the past 3 years that I wanted to go for my PMP certification. So I was at a point in my career where I was looking for a little bit more, just a little more guidance from a structure standpoint, and just really getting a hold of all of the tools necessary to do the best job that I could. And so that's what led me down the PMP path.
Gotcha, gotcha. And then you started studying and you decided you needed to add some to your studying. So how did that unfold?
Sure, it's pretty interesting. So I had a personal goal of, I started studying in December of 2021. And I had a personal goal of sitting for the exam by February. So I knew all of December and all of January would be dedicated to studying. And I found a weekend course, and it was great, but I needed more, I guess you could say. So there was a lot of material, as everyone knows who's looking into getting for the PMP, there's a lot of material to cover. And sometimes it just doesn't click on your own as you're reading through countless books and pages. And you could really use the help of someone who can break it down in a more practical manner. And so I didn't quite find that, I guess you could say, with the instruction that I originally took in December, but I had a lot of great material to go back to. And so I started studying on my own. And I think it was early January that I ran across you, Phil, because I found you in such a unique way. I was driving. I had to go somewhere, and it took about 40 minutes to get there. But I was in such a dedicated study mode during the rest of December, all of January, that leaving my leaving my desk, without my day job, but also studying in the evening or morning, for even 40 minutes seemed like a huge compromise to me. From a study standpoint, I know that sounds a little bit crazy, but I knew I had a huge task ahead and I had to study. And so I typed in Spotify PMP. I think it was PMP prep or something. And I found a lot of your original content. So I gave it a listen, and I loved the music that you create yourself. Some like nice, just soothing jazz music in the background, and the way that you broke down the content into very like bite-sized pieces, I think was really helpful to me. Some of the podcasts were maybe 10 minutes, some 20, 30. Yes, the PMP exam radio show. There it is. Yes, this was a saving grace to me while I was studying. I'm not even joking. I put it on in the morning when I walked my dog, all the time. And then while I was listening throughout all of my study sessions, while I was listening to you, and I had you on the background as I worked during the day and just, letting it all sink in, I kept hearing you allude to your YouTube videos for deeper content. And that's really the piece I was missing, because I needed to visually see a lot of the process breakdown, a lot of the acronyms and anything that you were sharing that was just really relevant to help the content sink in. So I started to really plug into all of your YouTube videos.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, I watched, I don't even know how many I watched. I had them on in the background. I had I think there was like a lo-fi. Is there
Yes.
lo-fi? Yes. And I love lo-fi music. So
Ah,
I thought that was so fun. So, the lo-fi agile kind of quick study sessions, and sometimes they go on for maybe 6 hours, something like that. So there's just a ton of content and it's fantastic. And it really, really, really helped me.
awesome. I'm really excited that you found us. And not only did you find us, you actually spread the word, and one of your friends actually came into class and is still getting ready on her exam. And shout out to her. She knows who she is.
Yes,
But
yes. I've had so many people come to me and ask me, and I am not even joking. I tell them, I send them directly to you, and I say, don't
wow,
even think about looking any further.
wow.
Just, I don't know if it's just myself, but I've heard others who you've interviewed as well. And I think you just have a very natural way and like a very fun way of getting the content across.
Thank you. I'm a very unserious person, so I guess it comes through. I
Well, no,
like
it's
having fun. I
yeah.
like joking, and
No.
I'm also an entertainer, so I love that. But what I'm really looking to learn, because you and I haven't had this discussion, and I want to learn when you got into the exam and the first question popped up on the screen. Let's go back in our little time machine. How did you feel when you saw the first question? Was it one of those, oh, I've got this, this is going to be a piece of cake, or was it a bit of an intimidating question? And how was the exam generally for you?
These are wonderful questions. So a little background about myself is that I am naturally, if you can't tell already, I'm a very nervous test taker. So I like to be as prepared as possible. I like to study as much as possible. And that anxiety has always been a little bit of a challenge for me in a test sense. So I took the exam at home. And I took the entire time. When I first saw the very first question pop up, it just seemed like a foreign language to me, to be honest. And
Wow.
it's kind of funny. And I really think it's because of my anxiety, right?
Mm,
That anxious feeling. So I don't think it was anything that I didn't know. I can't even remember what the question itself was, the first one, but
mhm.
I remember feeling like, oh no, like, I don't think I have this. And that feeling continued probably for the first 3 questions. There was
Wow.
a lot of pep talking to myself as I was taking the exam. I wasn't speaking out loud, of course, because it was online and proctored, and that
Uh-huh.
do not
Yeah.
do that. Do
Don't do
not
it.
do no noises, 'cause you'll
Okay.
be questioned. So yes, I had that kind of rolling in my head, and I had to just tell myself, like, you've got this. And
Wow.
yeah,
Wow. So things got better after about question 3, 4, you now got into a rhythm or routine, would you say?
I think I got into a better rhythm, but it really, I had another personal internal level set maybe halfway through. So probably about 2 hours in. Even during my breaks, which I took every single
Well
break.
done. Good.
Yeah, I would go, like, I remember it's just funny to think about because I had note cards, colorful note cards taped
Ah,
all over, like, not during the exam, but just leading
yeah.
up to and
Leading
everything.
up. Yeah.
And so I think I had something in my bathroom that said, like, you've got this, and it was just taped
Aw.
up there. And so it just reminded me of how hard I was studying prior, with like
Yeah.
everything that I was going through. And so it was about halfway through that it really, really clicked. I honed back in on everything that you have drilled into all of your students' heads about. You really just need to get into the agile mindset. And once you understand
Mm,
the agile mindset, you begin to see the questions and you can see how they're broken down, and you can really identify what is needed, and which answer choice is the correct one. And so
yeah.
that click really happened for me, probably about 25 to 30% of the way through. And I started to feel a little bit more at ease. Though I'm not going to lie, all the way through the full 4 hours, or I believe it was about 4 hours, I still was like, I don't know. I don't know how this is going to go until I clicked, the very last.
Wow. Wow. And thanks for sharing that about the agile mindset, because I did stress that quite a lot. And I do stress it all the time. But in general, let's talk about, just at a high level, move into the next slide, which is all about, the agile type of questions. Do you think the agile questions were easier than the predictive, or were they as difficult in your opinion, based on what you recall?
That's a good, I honestly think the reason I'm going to say easier is because of the agile mindset. Just keep that in mind. I don't think, not that I didn't understand the predictive mindset throughout, but I really think that going in with that lens of the agile mindset while answering the questions, it's almost like you can just see straight through,
Yeah.
this special vision once
The
you.
trained eye.
Yes, yes, and you know exactly what to look for, and it just, that is the most valuable feedback I think that you help to provide in a lot of your videos. Was it sounds so simple,
Yeah.
but it's really true, and I think,
Isn't it?
yeah, it really is, and I think the more people study and they review your content and they're in your courses, and it will click for them at some point, it'll just click. I think it clicks for everybody, and then they'll be able to see that. So they'll understand
Good deal. Good
how
deal.
to go into answering those questions, I
The
guess.
agile, good. Yeah, I like the way you brought out the vision. It's all about what you can see, because if you cannot see the agile perspective, you may think you got the question right, only to get a big shock, when agile comes back, or the whole exam comes back not looking too good. And I think that's what a lot of people are lacking. Now let's go to the elephant in the room, the 50% of the exam that everyone hates. Well, some
Right.
people love it, some people might like it,
Yes.
but let's talk predictive. How did you find the predictive?
I found that just as you have mentioned in some of your trainings too, not a lot of formula heavy work. So I think that's great. I think possibly in the past, as project management was more predictive, those you would see that more on the exam probably. So I don't think people need to worry about the formulas as much. I found the predictive questions to be it's just a little bit more of an old classic math problem, but not necessarily from a formula standpoint, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
it just has, of course, a little bit more of that process to it versus really just putting on that agile hat, if you will.
Absolutely. Yeah. Let's talk about one more piece here, Rachel. Let's go to the mix of both, the hybrid. Did you have any feelings of, oh, this is so mixed into a goulash of predictive and agile that I don't even know which one is which? Did you have any of those moments, or when they said hybrid, were they straightforward to tell you this is a hybrid question based on what you remember?
Gosh, I'm sorry. I apologize because it was a little more than a year ago when I sat for the exam. So trying to put myself back in that.
Yeah.
I I think it was a little harder to identify hybrid, hybrid itself. So I think there were certain things from what I remember, where you kind of got a glimpse that, oh, this was not a true predictive environment.
Yeah.
And so I think, again, really understanding the differences between agile, between predictive, and then having an idea of hybrid and some of those blended areas as well will help identify. But I think in general, I feel like I just kept that agile hat on for even all the hybrid questions, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
anytime I saw aspects of agile, I really focused on that agile way. And I was really happy because I go back to the anxiety I was feeling with testing in general. I'm very happy to say that when I pressed that last button and I really didn't know what was going to happen, and I took the full 4 hours. I
Wow.
was
Wow.
exhausted and hopeful and confused.
Oh.
I passed with
Woo!
thank you. I passed in the top percentile for all portions, and
Wow.
I was amazed because
Wow.
again, it didn't feel that way to me at the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well done. A lot of
Thank you.
times the anxiety just drowns you.
It
For
does, it
me,
really
I
does.
went, yeah, I went in a little bit opposite. I went in there with a lot of confidence, like, yeah, bring it on, bring it on. Question one smacks me across the head. I went scuttling over the floor, got up, faced question two, and again slapped me over the head. And it continued like that for 20 questions, Rachel. It got a question
Wow.
20, and I had spent 1 hour. So think
Oh,
about it.
yeah. I
It was-
I ran into a few moments like that too, where I had to really think about my time and recalculate and reset in my head. Like, okay,
yeah.
Rachel, like you got to pick this up. Because
Yeah, I had
yeah,
to
it did.
reset. Yeah, but I passed on my first attempt, but it didn't look like I was doing well. It didn't look like I was doing well. But let's talk about just three more areas that people generally have the question about. And one of them is taking the test at home. You're bold to have taken it at home, first of all, because we know a lot of stuff happens at home where the
Oh,
internet gets disconnected. So did you have any of those moments where anything funny happened, funny business stuff?
oh, yes. Again, I was a big anxious person leading up until the exam. So my because I was working full time, and so my exam I scheduled for a Saturday morning. I remember it was
Okay.
Saturday, February 5th.
Wow.
um, I know it stays with you, when you do something big like that. And I think it started at 8 or 9, something like that. But the week leading up, I live in the Dallas, Texas area, and the week leading up, we had one of our, famous little ice storms, like fun, crazy weather that we had. And I remember being very concerned about just the road. And I think something happened with my car earlier that week. And so I felt like all these little things were happening. I'm like, no, everything has to be perfect because I need to have everything perfect. And I wanted to make sure that I have a dog. And so I wanted to make
Oh,
sure that I wasn't being distracted. So I had to arrange,
oh,
for all of
wow.
that. So there are definitely a lot of things you need to consider if you do decide to take it at home. I think in hindsight, for my own sanity, it would have been better if I went into a testing center, because there's just a lot more control of the environment, the internet, things like that. So I thankfully I was fine with my internet, but I will say I'll advise everyone. I somehow read that a calculator was allowed. I don't know.
Ooh.
Yeah, I don't know where I read that, but I had a very basic, actually very old school accounting calculator, and nothing that would have any formulas or anything anything internet based or anything like that. And so I had this giant calculator on my desk because I thought it was allowed.
Yeah.
And of course the proctor, virtual proctor, will make you um, take photos and actually show your web viewer of your space, so that they can
Yeah.
make sure everything's completely clear, no notes, all of that. And I had this huge calculator on my desk, and he's like, what is that? And I felt like I was being almost barked at a little bit. So I was like, oh no, that kind of put me in a little bit of
Oh,
a
yeah,
worried
that's a bit
state. But
unsettling.
I remember picking up the calculator and I threw it across the room
Oh.
because I'm like, I don't want this to, compromise my test here or anything. So I
Oh,
quickly remedied the situation. But yeah,
nice.
there's a
Well,
different challenge with taking it at home, but it's definitely
yeah.
doable. And that's
That's
great.
that's a good story. So the way breaks work when you're at home, you get to the end of 60 and there's nothing you can do. You don't see the next 60, and then you go out, take your break, come back. It's a 10-minute break thereabouts, and you get two of those. Did you feel refreshed after your breaks? Did they help?
They really helped me. I took my breaks for the full amount of time. I came back a minute or two before just to make sure.
Mm.
But I took all of my time. I also, since I was at home, I prepared like snacks, little
Ah,
snacks. So
good.
I had like a little bit of food I could eat. Of course, I didn't want
Nice.
to eat anything too heavy, anything
Yeah.
like that, but just like some
Mm,
fruit,
good.
things like that, and plenty of water.
Yeah.
So yeah, I utilize my breaks pretty well, I think.
Lovely. That's great stuff. As far as the people, process, business is concerned, do you have any words of advice for people on how you tackled people, process, business? I know I had a lot of content about it. I know I had a lot of reminders, but when you were listening to like the radio show, I'm curious to know if you were like watching, if you were looking for knowledge area themes, or if you were kind of just looking at whatever I came out with next, or if you were going down the list, just trying to find things that you hadn't listened to. Did you do it in any particular order?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think when I found your show, I just naturally wanted to go in some type of a logical pattern of starting with like number 1, 2, 3, etc. And I believe that I found your breakdown of the PMBOK. I think it
Ah,
might have been
yes,
one of the
yes,
first. Yes.
yes, true.
Yes. So that's kind of where I started. So I really dug into the PMBOK first. And that helped me a lot. And then I know you had a lot, I think you had one on the Agile
That's
Manifesto.
true. Yep.
And just once I plugged into the Agile, and really once that really clicked for me, I really gravitated towards that side. But obviously you have to study all content.
True.
But I think with the PMBOK, I remember in my plethora of notes that I used to have everywhere when I was studying, I had I created the chart, I
That page,
recreated the
that infamous page 25.
infamous page 25. Exactly. It helps me as I
Mm.
study. I mean, if only you could have seen the stack of note cards I had. It was really
Wow.
crazy, but it helps me to always, rewrite a lot of things like that, especially something I need to visually remember. And so I had that taped to my refrigerator. And I had some
That's
other,
phenomenal.
I think I had the Agile Manifesto up there on the refrigerator as well. And so I think a lot of your podcast that you had from the road show, um, I, I started there, and then yep, there it is, page 25. And I really kind of kept some of these visual guides close to me, and I built them based on themes I was hearing in your podcast from what you were saying. Hey guys, these are important. Know these, and you emphasize that page 25 is very important. Like, make sure you understand it. And
Yeah.
this is very important, and it's very practical. And everyone who's
Yeah.
in a project management position can plan this, can apply this in their day-to-day work,
Yeah.
regardless if it's agile or predictive. It's really, you find a lot of those same themes. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. So in closing, first of all, I want to give a shout out to our friend who will be named as Jay, who is Rachel's friend and who has joined my training. And this is majorly for Jay to be thinking, what would Rachel have done differently? And knowing where Jay is in the process, kind of try to build some of that in. So what would you do differently?
what would I do differently?
Yeah, if you had to do PMP all over again.
I think honestly, before I found your podcast and I was working off of the initial content that I had from my
Hmm,
former training,
hmm.
I my mind immediately went to this crazy stack of note cards that I needed to have. I mean, I probably had 3 sets of note cards, and they were maybe a foot tall. If you stacked it all up, it was really crazy. Obviously, that's a lot of time.
Oh,
That
dear.
can create carpal tunnel. It can you're
Oh.
like dreaming about note cards in your sleep. It's really
Oh.
insane. And to be honest, I don't really think that helped me, have that content soak in. I don't think it
Mm,
helped. I think that was a little bit of a time suck for me,
yeah.
So if I could have done that over again, I feel I could have used that time more efficiently.
Mm.
I think that whole foot high stack of cards, or however it resulted, probably took me about a week. I hate to say it, because
Wow.
it's pretty
Wow.
funny to think about how
Wow.
much
That's a
time that
that's a
took.
lot of note cards.
A
Yeah.
lot of note cards, and you don't really need to do that.
Sure.
You need to obviously you need to study, and you need to find your method for doing so, but I don't necessarily think giving yourself hand cramps to that extent is the way to do it. So I would have done that differently. I also maybe would have given myself more of a project plan and a structure, goals, milestones for the week.
Mm,
Uh, Sometimes I felt like I was just floating around a little bit in terms of,
mm,
okay, what did I need to accomplish? And I would second guess and go back. I probably would have started no, I wouldn't really say that. I started taking my practice exams with ample enough time. I had a
okay.
lot of time when I was taking my practice exams. So I don't necessarily think that was it. I really think it was just maybe 3 weeks prior to me taking the actual exam is when everything started clicking. And that's when I finally started to make consistent 70s, 80s.
Mm,
Because before that, I remember having a major panic day about 3 weeks prior to the
mm,
exam, when I scored a 30, maybe a 20 or a 30. Maybe it was about two or 3 weeks prior.
yeah.
I didn't have much time left at that point. And I remember thinking, oh no, like I'll never pass this. But it was a blip, and I had to just accept that. And so I think maybe giving myself a little bit more grace too.
Hmm.
A good idea.
Brilliant, brilliant. Well, Rachel, I want to say a huge thank you to you for coming out to inspire others. We have a lot of people, thousands of them on that radio show, and they're going to be listening to this, and they may have questions. So any of you who have questions for Rachel, do put them in the Q&A, especially on Spotify. You can't do that on the Apple podcast, but you can definitely do that on Spotify. Or just going down to our website, it's praizion.com. That's Praizion.com, and I'll spell it out just in case you want to go check out some of the things that Rachel has mentioned, Praizion.com. And there you can find all sorts of study materials and additional aids that can help you and take you to the next level. But Rachel, we appreciate it and look forward to having you back for some future conversations about the world of work and the awesome things you've done as an account manager and a project manager. So once again, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Phil. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.